classics. Let's go to the movies and share some popcorn. Soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high and low. Cinema Classics on air.
Okay, Cinema Classics is produced by John DeSando. It airs Thursdays at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando,
I'm Audrey Harkonen.
and this is Cinema Classics. And boy, do we have a classic.
We have a mighty classic.
And you have even discussed this with Lou Giannetti.
Yeah, I did. Yes. Lucky me.
Yeah, I know. So I have the right partner for, it's called The Graduate. And it's a good 50-some years old, right?
Yeah.
67?
67.
40 and
Yeah.
55 years? Can that be?
Can that be?
Wow. All right. Stars Dustin Hoffman, and it is directed by Mike Nichols, two of my favorite people. Now, Audrey, in a sentence or two, can you tell our audience if there's possibly somebody out there who hasn't seen it?
If there is a soul out there that has not seen this film, yes, it is simply the story of, I guess it would be called a drom-com, but there's not a whole lot of comedy in it.
Yeah. Although some consider it a great comedy.
Yeah.
And as I look over it, I see what they're talking about. I always took it very seriously.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is a very successful college student, young man who graduates, and now he is home back in Southern California, very wealthy or very well-off family, and he does not know what he's going to do with his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has an affair with an older woman, then falls in love with the older woman's daughter, and that's basically the premise.
Yeah.
And it's a story of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Or he remains lost. Who knows? But
Yeah, he is. He's very discouraged
Right.
After college, and he was an athlete and
yeah, very successful in college.
Yeah,
and now
very.
he has no clue, and plastics is not doing it for him.
yeah, they go. One of the great lines is
Yes.
his father's friend or partner that suggests to him, "I have one word for you: plastics." And it was just when I was beginning to know what real plastics of credit cards were.
Yeah.
So that plastic I was beginning to know very well.
Yeah.
And plastic still had a pejorative connotation to it, even though most of what we now use is made of plastic.
Yes, that's true.
So
Very true.
it was good advice,
Right.
but at the time it was part of the whole satire.
Very much so. I just have one word.
Yeah.
That's all he said. Right.
Well, Benjamin. So he's, you know what? He's so lost, and we get in the first scenes how lost he is.
Yeah.
I want to give you the side note that when I saw it with Kathleen Turner in London,
Oh,
the stage play.
you
of The
did?
Grad, yes.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And most of the men were there to see her naked, which she was for a few seconds.
Well, that, I can understand
Well,
that.
I was going to send a message to her that she should try out for Ohio State as a halfback or something like that. Anyway, but the thing is, Audrey, they started with the two of them in the bedroom.
That's how the
The movie started.
the film or the theater.
I mean, theater, excuse
Yeah.
me. Thank you. That's how the theater started.
Wow. Now that surprises
Oh.
me. It starts out that way because the setup is so good with the film where he's avoiding his own party. And he's weaving around in the house and there's a bunch of older people there and they're all grabbing him and congratulating him. And he's looking very, very low and he's just looking for a place to hide.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is parties for him, but it's really for the parents.
Right.
It's really so Southern California.
Yeah.
They have the pool and they have all the jargon and all they're concerned about is what he's going to do with his life.
Yes.
And he's going to have a little red car to pursue the chicks. I think what he could. Anyway, so you can understand why he's lost. Now, I think the best symbol of that, of his being lost, do you remember it?
The
One of
best symbol.
Uh,
Well, I think that it's the iconic picture of him at the bottom of the pool in his scuba gear. And he has found respite. He is all alone. He's being left alone, but he's standing in the bottom of the pool.
he did not, this was his father's present to him, I think.
Yes.
He did not want to put it on and do it, but he did it as a dutiful son.
Yes, Dad, can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? He kept saying, you could hear him in the background. It was great. Yeah.
And Nichols puts you right behind the mask.
Oh, yes.
And lets you hear him breathe.
Yes, yes.
The guy's barely alive.
Yeah.
He's just breathing in and out of his mask. But and a complementary motif to that is the little diver in this tank.
In the tank? Yes, yes. Oh, I'm glad you reminded. Yes, in his aquarium.
Yes.
It's in his bedroom.
Yeah, that water motif is pervasive.
Yes, it sure is.
I mean, I think toward the beginning we have him behind the tank,
Yes.
and we're looking at him.
And we're looking through the tank
Yes.
as she's leaving the bedroom.
Yes.
And she throws the key
Yes.
to the car
Great,
into the tank.
great move.
Yeah.
Mrs. Robinson.
Mrs. Robinson, by the way.
She's starting to do her seduction. And he has the great line, Mrs. Robinson, are you trying to seduce me? Duh.
Yeah, and then she laughs at him and he gets so self-conscious. He's
Oh, yeah. That's Anne Bancroft.
unbelievable. She
Yeah.
is just outstanding. And interestingly enough, she's only about 6 years older than Dustin Hoffman at
Correct.
the time.
She just-
That is also how she pulls off.
They put
that-
some streaks in her hair. that
Yeah,
really-
but that
yeah.
cool, aloof maturity.
Yes.
That
Yes.
she's just incredible.
Yeah, and she married Mel Brooks.
Yep.
And she was a couple of years ahead of me at Georgetown, and she was in the same theater company.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, she had graduated by the
Interesting.
time I got in there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when I knew I was not an actor, and that I actually met people who were. Contrary to my mother, who said, Johnny, why don't you just go to Hollywood? I had the Redford looks,
Yeah.
but I think Redford had the franchise. And so,
Yeah.
but anyway, thanks, Mom. I love her. That's how devoted she was. But when I got there, I said, Mom, I'm very good at presenting myself, but I am not an actor. So people who actually really acted like they were the character. Anyway, it was very good. But anyway, she was there, so she was superb at this.
Yes.
And then, what was it, Catherine Ross, was it?
Catherine Ross.
Was her daughter.
Yes, the daughter is Elaine.
Yes.
Elaine, and she is home from the summer, and there is a fix-up done by the parents, which Mrs. Robinson is not pleased with. And that's when Benjamin falls for Elaine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And isn't that a great setup? If
Yeah.
you want drama within a comedy,
Right.
have him having an affair with the mother of the girl he's in
yeah.
love with. That is really,
Falls for the girl. He's known her apparently, and he hadn't been too impressed with her before, but yeah, that relationship quickly heats up, despite the fact that he's sleeping with Mom.
yeah. I was very happy to be able to ask you this because I don't have the firm answer to it. And there's very little in this movie that I haven't been able to put together over the years as I've seen it. But I'm wondering what your attitude is toward his taking her out on that date, on what they did on that date. Do you remember when
He drags her, Elaine you're talking
Yes.
about, yeah, he drags her into a strip club.
Yes.
I think his intention was he didn't want to go on the date in the first place, but his parents were insisting. And he did not want to alienate Mrs. Robinson either. So he wanted to make himself very unattractive and very unappealing to Elaine. And it pretty much did the opposite.
Good.
She started feeling very sorry for him, and confused by his behavior, and she began to cry, and that's when Benjamin just fell apart for Elaine.
Well, thank you, that's really fine. I would add to that, something I've also thought about here, is that he doesn't know better. He's so socially unskilled that he takes her to this foolishly.
Yeah.
But, which is not quite as good as your explanation, which is that he's actually forcing the issue.
Yes, he's really very consciously trying
Yeah.
to repel her.
I think so.
And her reaction then actually softens him, and that's when the relationship, then they became very honest with each other. They're sitting at a drive-in hamburger place, and they are sharing their deepest feelings about what they're going to do with their lives, and they don't know what they're going to do with their lives, and that's when the relationship then begins between the two of them.
And we have barely touched all the intricacies of this, but I wonder what aspect, what a question this is, what aspect of the movie is most memorable?
Most memorable, it's the soundtrack.
All right,
The
talk about it.
soundtrack, yes, the soundtrack just is such an integral part of the film. And in those mid-60s and early 60s, there's a lot of films that are using very contemporary artists in a very, very important way. This obviously was Simon and Garfunkel. And you can't hear the song Mrs. Robinson without thinking
Right.
of the film. There's a few years later, he is in The Midnight Cowboy with Harry Nilsson doing the
Yes.
soundtrack. It's just very, very important
Yeah.
and integral. And then you move into the early 70s, I can think of one right off the top of my head. You cannot hear anything, you can't see Shaft.
All right.
Without thinking about that musical score.
Well, you're making me think about Butch Cassidy.
Exactly. And that becomes so important, is the selection of, it isn't big orchestration that's behind the films now. It is something very contemporary.
And you know, I think it was one of the first ones really, or at least to get our awareness of the use of pop.
Yes, very
with
much
that.
so.
Yeah,
very,
I
very much
think,
so. Nichols makes a brilliant move doing that. He really does.
It is good, and you're right. So the Mrs. Robinson, oh my gosh, it just seems to encapsulate the whole film with it.
Yes.
Now, as we see it progress, what about the parents? It always interested me. What do you think about how they portrayed? Well, I'll think. Why don't we discuss that? And on our podcast, as you and I started gabbing, and we're already at the limit for cinema classics. But people, if they want to hear more, and I think they want to hear more from Audrey, and I don't blame them. So we have a podcast called Back Talk, and you have to go to WCBE and find Podcast Experience, and then find that, and we'll have it. Now, if you tap into to the website actually for WCBE or my Facebook, I'll have the Back Talk there. I'll have it.
Okay, very good.
Imprinted in there. Otherwise, what do you advise, Audrey? Now we're talking something that's almost 60 years old. What do you advise here?
Well, yeah, if you have an opportunity to see it, it's very, very worthwhile. And again, just for the soundtrack too. It's really great.
Cuckoo Choo.
Yes.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with